Hi, this is Hannah, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm working on a happy birthday card. I recently did a butterfly mixed media card, and someone saw it and they liked it. They liked the colors that I used in it, and they liked the layout. And so they asked if I could create a happy birthday card using those same colors. So we'll see where we end up. If you're new to the channel, I hope that you will hit the subscribe button and become a regular. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the original card. Because we're doing a birthday card, it's going to look a little different, but I'm going to try to keep a lot of the elements the same. But instead of the butterfly, I think I'm probably going to put balloons or something on there. I'll have an element like this, but I think I'll have the balloons on there. We'll see how that works out. The oxide inks that I think I'm going to use are, I may not use all of these, but I know I will use some of these because I use them here. Rusty Hinge, Broken China, Uncharted Mariner, Salvage Patina, and Tumbled Glass. The blue-green family, that's what I'm working with. So this is the Rusty Hinge will go well with any of these blues. This is a deep blue, and then the greens. And so you just need to pick your die and your stamps and your stencils that you're going to use. I used a script stamp on here, and I'm going to use another one. So let's gather our supplies, and we'll come back and we'll get started. I recently saw a video where a crafter was saying that people only want to look at shorts and they don't want to look at 30-minute long videos. And so maybe that's true, I guess, because people have very short attention spans these days. But I've decided that I'm going to continue to do long form tutorials. Number one, because I'm doing these really for my blog. It's not really because I think I'm going to get hundreds of thousands of followers. I'm not that kind of content creator. This is just for people who are hobbyists like myself, and you're cruising along on YouTube and you might see something and say, oh, I wonder how she did that. And so that's why I do the long form tutorials. And if people don't want to sit through an entire tutorial, they can always just fast forward to get to where they're trying to go. But I'm going to continue to do step by step. So a few other things that I think I might use for this project. I think I'm going to use this happy birthday for my sentiment, some alphabet stamps to stamp my background. I'm going to use this label maker. It was a promotional item for me. And at first I thought I'm not going to use this a lot, but I find lately I have been using it to create sentiments for my cards. And this one came with a black ribbon inside. And I don't even know if they still have these. If they do, I will put a link down below. And it also came with all of these other, there's a pink, and this is a sort of a blue, a silver, a green, and a gold. And they just sort of drop in. So I thought that was cute. You can swap these out depending on your project. And here I have, two pieces of acetate. And I use these for my smushing. So this one is just a little tiny one. And then this is a sort of a bigger square one. But I use these to smush my ink. And I'm probably going to use some twine, but those are the basics. And then, of course, the watercolor paper. You're going to need some water and paper towels, something to clean your surface with, maybe a paintbrush. I am using this handmade watercolor paper, so it's a little thinner than the cold press commercially made watercolor paper, but I like it, and it's a 4x6 size, so it's perfect for my projects. I had a good result with it on the card I showed at the beginning of the video, and so I'm going to use it again for this birthday card. And I'll have a link down below in case you want to try it. So I'm trying to decide if I want to tape this down. I think that I'm not going to tape it down. It's pretty easy to work with. So I'm going to start with the tumbled glass. This first round, I'm going to smush it directly onto the paper. So I'm just going to wet this. I'm not going to put too much water in it. I don't want it to be too wet. I'm going to do 2 layers, one with the acetate and then one with smushing it directly. And I said this is thin paper, but as you can see, I'm using the smushing method on this and it's not bleeding through. And now I'm just adding an extra layer from the acetate because it just gives it another level and another texture. Between layers, you need to use your heat gun to dry the layer so that each time you add a color or you add more of the color you were using, you're adding a layer, you're not blending a layer. And that's what you want to do. And so I'm just going to put some more of the tumbled glass down, and I don't want straight lines from the acetate, so that's why I'm sort of dragging it across the page. And then back in, smushing a little bit. And I just kind of look at it to see what kind of coverage I have on the page. But there's no real rhyme or reason to why I do it. I know you're supposed to leave so much white space whenever you're doing this, and I just sort of eyeball it. There is a trick that I learned from another crafter's YouTube channel on balling up a piece of paper and dropping it on your project, and then the area that's outside of your balled up paper or is the white space on your project. But like I said, I can just eyeball it pretty much now, and I intend for this one not to have a lot of white space. I'm going to cover all of this up. So this is just a matter of laying down the colors, and I'm drying again between my layers. So you move on to your next color, and in this case, I'm going on to the salvaged patina because it's a little bit darker and has a little more green in it than the salty ocean, but not enough that there's this gigantic shock to the eye. These 2 colors will blend together very well. So this is sort of looking the way I want it to look. I'm going to put a heavy black stamp on here. So I do want to get a couple of layers of the blue down. I'm trying to stay true to the color palette that was on the original card. But we'll see how this goes as we move along. If your paper starts to curl, what you can do is just spray a little water on the back and lay it down, and it will start to flatten out. That's not a problem right now. And then because I'm drying between layers, I'm not getting a lot of curling. This seems to be shaping up pretty well. I think I'm going to use broken china. I think the broken china is going to be better for this project right now than the Mariner, because Mariner is a darker blue. So let's take a look and see what this looks like. I'm just going to drag this through here. We'll see what I get. Okay, well, yeah, that's, yeah, I guess that's okay. I'm not, yeah, I'm just trying to manipulate it a little bit because I got like a big blob in the middle, and that's really why I was trying to use the acetate, because I didn't want it to get little blobs in the middle of my project, but I mean, we'll see. A quick dry of that layer so we can move on. We may be ready to move on to the stamping layer. This is so blue, though, I know it's probably time to introduce the rusty hinge or some other contrasting color. Okay, so I like the results that we got from adding the rusty hinge. And now I'm just going to stencil in some background. Whenever I'm creating my backgrounds, I like to use lost shadow and speckled egg because I find that they create sort of a faux white space when I do a card like this where I'm going to do a lot of heavy black stamping. The those two inks, if I stencil in enough background in those colors, they tend to come through and have the same effect as white space. So that's why I like using them. And they go really well with this particular palette, which is a lot of blues and blue grays. So I'm going to use the speckled egg on my script. And I'm always very random. There's very rarely any deliberation for my how I stencil in my script. I just go at it. I'm sure if I were more strategic about it, I might get a better result. But I've always been happy with the results that I've gotten. I do kind of look. You can see that I'll pause and kind of look and see if I want to put a script in a certain place. But like I said, I'm always happy with my outcome. This is like a musical scale, and I just want it stamped in some random places. And I'm using vintage photo, which will go fine with the rusty hinge. I didn't want to use black. The vintage photo is a nice color to mix with all of these blues and grays and with the brown of the rusty hinge. So this is my main background stamp. It's an alpha stamp. It has a lot of blocks of text in it, and I thought it would work well for this particular project. And I'm going to use my stamp press for this. I like the way this turned out. It's difficult to see all of this stamp because some parts of it are lighter than others, but it is the look that I was aiming for. So I'm happy with that. It's going to work perfectly into the design. So now I'm going to go back in with some additional text. And I like this stencil because it does have all the postage iconography on it, and I can use it and not have to go to another stencil. I can just flip it around, go to different areas of the stencil, and pick up words and shapes. Now, when I do my backgrounds, I like to put a piece of paper towel on and I spray it with water, and I use that water to lift ink off the page, and it creates water spots in some areas, and that also gives me the impression of the white space that I lack when I cover up my whole project. Now, I want to have happy birthday in the same colors that are on my card. So what I'm doing now is just taking a piece of scrap paper and randomly using the inks that I use to create my card. It's mostly the salvaged patina and the rusty hinge. And if I had thought about it, I would have made this a wet process and then dried it in between, and I would have had more depth of layering for my colors, but that's okay. If you look on the card, you'll see that I had already cut Happy Birthday in craft foam. And I'm now just going to take my colored sentiment and place it on top of the craft foam, just trying to figure out where it's going to be on my card. But I like the way it looks. I probably should have put a little more green in there, but I didn't. It's too late now. And I think it's going to be just fine because I do want the sentiment to have dimension, and I don't want these letters obviously right up against the colors on the card because they would then just disappear into the card. I think I'm going to have to do some splattering. I'm not sure that my background, even with all the dark stamping that I did, I'm not really sure that there's enough black to distract from the other colors. So I'm going to put some black, I think, and some white splatter, or even I might even do some rusty hinge splatter. I just think it needs it. Okay, so now we can stamp our image, and I am going to stamp this image 3 times to mount them on the card. And I didn't want to make you sit through me doing all of that. And now I'm just putting foam tape on the back because I need to raise this to the same level as my sentiment. So I think it's going to be cute. This image has like the little square head, and so the happy birthday balloons are going to be coming out of her head. I thought that would be a super cute design. And I thought I was ready to place my focal, but I realized that I need to add just a little more black splatter. I think I need some heavy drops, so I'm going to do that. I just need to pull pull that visual out a little more. So I think these splatters are a little heavier, and they're going to give me the impact that I'm looking for. I'm also adding additional white splatter because I felt like some of those splatter points weren't as heavy as I wanted them to be. So yeah, this is shaping up and it's looking really good. And I think once I get the focal pieces on here and put it on the base, I'm going to have a really nice birthday card. And now I get to play with my label embosser to create my happy birthday greeting. And I'm actually keeping it very simple on this one because the main sentiment says happy birthday. And so on the label embosser, I'm just punching out to you. And I'm also punching out the word enjoy. I'm going to put that on the inside of the card. I'm drying these splatters because they're not drying fast enough and I'm trying to get finished. So I decided to hit them with the heat gun, which was a good idea because a lot of them flattened out and they look really good. I'm taking some black soot and I'm going to go around the edges. Now the edges of this watercolor paper that I'm using are deckled, and when I distress them with the black soot distress ink, it really does give them a vintage appearance, so I like that. I just think it helps the card, even though this watercolor paper is going to be mounted on black cardstock. The black soot around the edges is a nice elevating touch. Okay, so I have my first layer, and I'm going to layer my background onto this black cardstock. And this paper is so thin that I normally would put a piece of craft foam behind it. But since I'm mounting it on a fairly heavy piece of cardstock, I'm thinking it's going to be okay. I just need to get enough glue on here in the right places so that it won't peel up and that none of this is going to curl. And I don't think it will. So that looks good. That looks good. I like the presentation so far. Now I've chosen a cardstock base that was the closest to broken china, but it actually blends in very well with the colors in the card. So, you know, I was fortunate to get such a good match. Now I am going to put some wax thread on here. I just wanted to look for placements for my sentiment, and I am going to run a little piece of thread from the character's hand up to the balloon to make it look like the balloons are on a string. So this is a great piece of bluish black thread, but it has this sort of aqua green running through it, which made it an ideal thread for this project. So it took a minute for me to get this thread in the right place, but I think it was worth it because it's those little touches, I think, that will separate your project from someone else's. Okay, so now we're ready to just assemble our elements. And I'm going to speed this up because putting the card together is pretty simple. So I'm pleased with how this turned out. I think that I met the expectations of the customer. The colors that she wanted are in the card. I included the script elements, all the mixed media parts that she liked. So I'm really happy, and I'll see what kind of reception it gets when I present it to her. It occurred to me that because the world is going to AI and everything is digital now, that those of us who are paper crafters, those of us who continue to write, who continue to communicate through the actual written on paper with ink communication, will become the Luddite community of the future. And we may be preserving a lost art, pretty much like the scribes did during the Dark Ages. So if you would like to share your projects with us, we'd love to see them. We'd love to have you join our challenge. They're fun. We try to recognize everybody, and we try to give a shout out to all of the people who create with us. I will leave a link down below to both of my challenges, 613 Avenue Create and A Place to Start. We accept all crafts, and we'd love to see your work. So I look forward to seeing some of you there. And if you haven't done so already, please remember to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again next time.